everybody. I'm Karen.
And I'm Steve.
And welcome to another edition of Felix's Helixes. This is episode 6, where we will be talking about season 4, episode 6, The Scandal of Altruism. This is a Southgate Media Group podcast. You can find us at southgatemediagroup.com and on Facebook by searching for Southgate Media Group and Felix's Helixes.
Absolutely. And this episode was written by Chris Roberts and directed by Grant Harvey, who has done episodes of 12 Monkeys, Killjoys, and Bitten.
Very good there with the sci-fi stuff.
Yes.
high quality stuff. All right, so we're dead on with our ratings this week, right?
First time.
Yeah, exactly. But it's hard to not
Yes.
be together on this one, right? So what did you give it?
I gave it 9.5 bleached DNA samples.
Yeah, and again, we're right together on this 9.5, and I gave it, it's not from the episode, but it's from my personal interaction with it, boxes of tissues, 9.5 boxes of tissues from this week, because man, this was an emotional episode. And one of the things we do on the site, one of the sites I blog for, it's called Nice Girls TV. We do a Woman of the Week, and it's Women of the Week, really. And Tatiana was one of our Women of the Week this week. She would be it every week unless it was, for like head and shoulders above every performance they've ever given. It's like standout performances.
Right.
It was Sarah Shahi from Person of Interest this week,
yeah.
right? And Tatiana Maslany. And it was Tatiana for her performance as Cosima at the end of this episode, where she broke down. And completely warranted, I think, for that.
Yes.
Amazing breakdown performance there at the end. Because I think that was one of her finest scenes in all of Orphan Black right there.
I couldn't agree more.
At that point. And wow, I mean, those two women this week, both very fragile and very strong in their portrayals of their characters. And in just 1 hour, they went from just total strength to just complete broken down weakness. And how can you get better than that? I mean, to portray two ends of the spectrum all in the space of 1 hour is just amazing. And she did the same with her Beth character as well, in a mirror of the flashback scenes as well. So we'll talk about all that during our discussions. And I have my story titles, and normally I go a little funny, but I didn't really head towards the funny because this was a way dramatic episode. So I did A story, the EV of the deal, instead of Eve of the deal. B story, crystal unclear. Okay, that one was kind of funny.
Yeah.
And then C story, balance of power. And that, of course, is about Evie as well, but in a different way. So we also have some quotes afterwards. So those will come into play when we're talking about that part of the episode. Man, I love that one quote you gave for the crystal unclear part. So remind me to throw that in too. Okay, so the main storyline. Wow. I almost titled it "Let's Make a Deal."
Right.
But wow. I didn't want to put that small of a title to it, right?
Right. Yeah. No, this was huge.
Yeah. Sarah orchestrates this deal, and there's going to be a lot of guilt associated with what went down during this whole thing, and not just on Sarah's end.
No.
Sarah and Cosima are both going to have to live with their decisions here. And I think even Susan is going to have to reckon for not only what happened with the Lita portion of the deal that went sour, but also the caster part that went sour.
Right.
Because her decision there also had some consequences.
Or at least it should in the future.
Right.
It did.
It did
in
here,
the
and it
episode
might.
as well. Yeah.
Right.
I think it'll have
It'll
a
reverberate.
much longer lasting effect.
Right. Yeah. Her relationship with Ira continues, or at least, did at the beginning. And when the deal was set up, they could make this deal happen so that the cells could be isolated so that the Leda clones were the only ones that got the cure. And again, we'll go into that in a minute. But that also meant that they could withhold the caster portion of the cure because they didn't want the killing machines, and I'm doing air quotes, to get their cure.
Right.
And even though Ira is different from that, they didn't want to have that cure fall into the wrong hands.
Right.
And
absolutely.
Yeah, and I agree.
Yes.
I think that was smart.
You had to.
Right. And Susan understood, and she, her thinking was, if that's all I can get, Leda means everything to me. That's my project. She wasn't involved in the caster cloning.
No.
Leda was her thing, her baby. So that she's going to take that, definitely. And of course, not only did that hurt Ira, that meant that he wasn't going to get a cure. So there was that double whammy. There was a personal aspect to it as well as the future of his, his life.
Right.
And that also meant that he self-harmed. So yeah, that's gonna be difficult for her to deal with. Oops. Right?
Yeah. Yeah, just a little bit.
Yeah. And Sarah,
it was really funny the way Ira played it off too.
Right. Yeah, he was very stoic in front of people.
Yeah, and still mentioned, how you feel about, meeting your original, and she was of course electric about it. Mm-hmm. And you could see that didn't quite set so well with Ira.
Right. Yeah, you could see a flicker in his eyes. Mm-hmm. He played it stoically, but Ari definitely played it so that we could see, the actor showed us that there was something going on behind.
Right. Internally, yes.
Right. Whereas Susan, of course, wasn't going to pick up on that because she didn't want to.
Right.
And I like the line that you chose there that Sarah says, or she says, "Christ, a caster," and Ira says, "Actually, I'm a Libra." And he's just so dry about everything. It's almost like he's an android, right? I mean, he has that data quality about him, right? So yeah, it was a little wrenching to see that he was so upset, but I didn't have a huge amount of sympathy. I don't know about you.
Yeah, that's one thing I've noticed in a couple of the reviews that I've read is a lot of people really aren't caring for Ira's character right now.
Yeah, there's a part of me that thinks, well, that's kind of cold of them to withhold it once they know that this caster clone isn't a military caster clone.
Right.
But they also can see beyond the one.
Right.
They see that can also be used for any caster clone. So if there's any other caster clones out there, and they know full well there could be because they found Leda clones,
all over
what is
the
it?
world.
Once a month they're finding a new Leda clone. So there's probably more caster clones floating around out there, and army-based caster clones.
Right.
So
absolutely,
they really do have to watch their step there, and so I feel like we can see that, and definitely Susan can see that. Being impartial, she can see that.
Right.
But Ira definitely,
No, because he doesn't know anything about his brothers.
but intellectually he probably can understand that Castor was a military project. But, personally, he's gutted.
Right.
Not only that, but it's, the woman he loves is doing it. So, whoops.
Yeah.
Yeah, and she doesn't really spend a lot of time explaining to him why she made that decision.
No, not at all.
So, yeah, very sad. But again, I'm not terribly invested in his character. I'm really not.
Right.
I care more about Mark
Yeah.
than I do about Ira. I have more feelings about the clones I hated than I do about Ira.
Yeah.
I don't know why that is. Is that just because he's so mechanical?
I think so.
Yeah, it could be.
With Rudy, we got to see crazy and some emotion, and Ira is very emotionless.
Yeah. So it's hard to connect with him at all, I think.
It really is.
Yeah. Okay, so the other side of the deal is that Cosima and Sarah go to Kendall directly. And this is behind the scenes. We don't see that conversation.
No.
But they go to her and talk to her. And are they the ones that tell her that she has cancer? Do we already know she has cancer?
Well, we know she has cancer, but the only person other than Kendall that knows is Scott.
Okay.
So she basically tells Sarah and Cosima that she does.
Okay. And then once they're filled in, then they do a little bit of research and find out that that's how they can separate the Leda cells from the castor cells.
Because the Leda cells are being attacked and not the castor.
Right. And so they come up with this plan and they leave Siobhan out of it until they have the whole plan formed.
Right, until it's already started.
Right. Now, what do you think about that? Do you think that's smart?
Actually, yes. I think Sarah did the right thing by not telling Siobhan until it was basically too late. Because if she hadn't, I don't think it would have went down.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. For one thing, she's the only one that doesn't have anything in the game. The only thing that she personally has invested in all this is a relationship with her mother.
Right.
Now, I'm not saying that's nothing.
No, that's huge right now for her.
Sure. But we're talking about lives. Someone's life is in danger when it comes to everything else.
Right.
Cosima's life is on the line. She doesn't have very long. Kendall, she has cancer. So she figures, I'm not going to be around very long. I got to do this now.
Right.
There's just so much. And Sarah's got the thing in her face and she wants it out.
Yes, before it does do damage.
Right. So their thinking is, we have to do this. If Siobhan is going to stop us, then we have to kind of leave her out. And we know she's a loose cannon.
And it's really no different than Siobhan's decision at the end of season 2 when she gave up Helena.
Mm-hmm. Right. Exactly right.
She was saving Sarah.
Right. For the good of the
Kira
people that needed it.
Yes.
Right.
That was the only way she could see getting those two out of Dyad's clutches.
Right. If she'd have known that Helena was pregnant, she might not have made that decision.
Right.
But it was justified in her mind.
Right.
Because of the lives that were endangered.
Mm-hmm.
So, and again, there was something more at stake here, but that was an unknown quantity at the time.
Right.
So they go ahead with this plan, and Siobhan, because they've already set it in motion, of course she goes along with it, but I think she's also okay with it because she gets it, right? I mean,
Yes, I do believe that Siobhan will not hold any deep grudges against Sarah or Cosima over this, unlike Sarah, who was very emotional for quite a while afterwards when she found out that Siobhan had arranged the whole Helena deal.
Right. Well, there's a big difference, too, in that Siobhan never came clean.
Right.
You know,
Until after the fact.
right.
And at least Sarah did to say something before it was over.
Right. And before it really got into the full swing of everything,
Right.
you know, they just said, look, the people involved in this are doing it, but we want to let you know what's happening. So she went to her almost right away. And she said, look, here's why we didn't involve you, because it's our lives. And Siobhan was like, okay, I get it. But I'm not a big fan.
No, this could go 50 ways south very quickly. And
Right. Which it did.
Mm-hmm.
But that was because there was someone that they didn't suspect too much.
Right.
Now,
And that was one of the greatest bait and switches.
wow,
of all time.
right? Okay, so 2 weeks ago, Evie showed back up. And I remember you and I were talking and we were like, yeah, you remember we saw her in the pilot and now they're drawing her back in. And it was like this little tiny thing that, oh yeah, we saw her back in the pilot. Do you remember us talking about that?
Oh, yeah.
That it was just like this little tiny
Yes.
thing.
All it was Leaky saying, your people are digging up my people. And
Right.
or my people are digging up your people, whichever
Right.
way it was. And it was. But she recognized that Beth was Alita.
Right.
And that was the clue right there is you go, what you talking about, Willis?
Right. Right. So we saw her 2 weeks ago in a smaller role, but that kind of, oh, right. We saw her before. Then last week she was big in the Brightborn area.
Right. And
So-
you get this great backstory of how she was sick as a kid. And
Right.
because her parents wouldn't give up, she finally got in for gene treatment. And now she's all better. And I'm going to try to do that for everybody. And, you know, really trying to make the sales that I'm here to help everybody. And you go,
Yeah, but I didn't suspect anything because she was such a great right-hand woman to
Right.
Susan. And it was like she wanted to learn from Susan. And to me, it just looked like, you know, she was there with Leaky. And it's like she wanted to learn everything from Leaky. And now she was on to a better version of Leaky, which was Susan. And now what we learned in this episode was that she was with Susan even back then.
Right.
So not only was she a hanger-on to Leaky, but she was also with Susan and in secret, I'm guessing, because Leaky didn't know about Susan being alive still.
Right.
So she was playing both sides of the field then with Brightborn
And Dyad.
and Dyad. So, and I'm guessing they called it, did they still call it Topside back then, do you think?
Oh, I'm sure that group has always been known as Topside.
Okay. So Susan didn't seem to be too undercover, but just completely out of Rachel's life.
Right.
So she was, you know, raising money for her foundation, but just, you know, out of the public eye. But now we've got the question answered as to who Beth was going to see that night
Right.
with a white wig. And I thought for sure, you know, well, what is she coming back with bloody hands about?
Right.
What is that about? Because we know she didn't hurt Susan. You know, I can't imagine her beating up Susan,
Right.
although, okay, whatever. And I'm thinking, okay, so is it the cop with the beard?
Right. Could it have been Duco?
Right? I'm trying to put all this together. And then all of a sudden she gets in the car and, you know, we're putting all this together and all at the same time it comes together that, you know, Sarah has found out that the cigarettes are in blood and that Kendall has been kidnapped. And then we see the whole scene play out with Evie on the road, with Kendall in the back of the van with Duco. And then we see the flashback to Beth where she gets in the back of the car and Evie is telling her that, you know, her whole life's going to be cleansed and all the people in it are going to be killed. And it all falls together that Evie's the mastermind
yes.
behind all of this, starting back when Beth, I mean, in the very first scene of the pilot, when Beth kills herself, it's Evie
that's behind the
that
whole
did that.
thing.
Evie. This person that a couple episodes ago wasn't even on our radar.
Sorry.
Crazy, right?
Yes. I mean, there were people thinking that it might have been Ferdinand behind it. Who else? There was somebody else that I saw.
Or it could have been Susan, or it could have been Duco, or it could have...
Right, yeah.
Yeah, and it could have been people that have been in it for a long time that have gone by the wayside already. Leaky, definitely, or maybe some other people. But to have Evie be the mastermind behind this whole thing, and for everything to go, and pardon my French, but for everything to go tits up,
yeah,
all in one episode. Susan not only gets to meet Kendall in this episode, but she also sees all the research go up in smoke, literally up in smoke. Kendall gets killed and fried. All the research gets taken off the hard drive by a virus.
Yes.
And Sarah destroys everything because Kendall gets taken. And she feels like if she does that, Kendall will be brought back to them safely.
Right.
However,
no, it's
because
not Susan that did it.
Right. Because Evie doesn't care about the research.
No, she wants the clones gone.
Right. So taking the research hostage does not do anything.
No,
for her.
She wants all of it gone, so all the clones to get sick and die, and
Right.
she's the future of
Right.
a better human being.
Right. And to her, that's her competition.
Yes.
So
Yes,
if they're all
if they
gone,
can get the clones
healthy,
to where they can have babies and not get sick, and there's the competition.
right. And I think she kind of feels like that might be an abomination compared to her
Right.
work, where she can
sure.
just take humans that are already being formed and make them better, instead of making a new human out of DNA
Right.
that keeps getting replicated over and over. But really, all Susan's trying to do is heal the clones that she's already made, and she might be trying to make more at some point. I think she may have a feeling already that perhaps it's time to end that cycle. You know, not crank out more clones. But who knows?
She made one comment that she is patient and Evie is after the god awful dollar.
Right. Oh, yes, that's definitely her. She's the
Yes, and
Brightborn thing
impatient
is,
and wants results now.
Right.
And
right.
that's
Yeah, that's
when
her
you
thing.
knew that, yeah, that's what's going on, all right.
Right. And Susan is in it, I think, more for the research value.
Right. She's in it for the science.
Right.
Evie's in for
To make
for the
mad
dollar.
science. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, that's crazy. Just crazy. And so the blood on Beth's hands when she comes in and she talks to MK and tells her to get out and hide and all that stuff, it's all Evie.
And if it wasn't for Duco,
Yep.
Evie wouldn't have lasted because Beth would have just pistol whipped her to
Taken
death.
her out. Yeah. Or shot her.
Yeah.
Either way. And then we wouldn't have had the show.
Yeah.
That doesn't make sense. But but yeah, I can't believe it all comes down to this character that we just dismissed out of hand
Right.
until this episode. So crazy. So Kendall is no more. Taps being played. And
Yes.
it's a character that I wasn't in love with, but I did kind of... I had feelings for her.
Yes.
They weren't all good.
Until this episode.
They still weren't all good. There
Sorry,
was this...
that speech she made
Oh, yeah.
was just awesome.
Yeah, it was very awesome. There was still the whole thing about killing Siobhan's boyfriend.
Yeah, that's true.
So I still had an issue with that. Right. But the present day Kendall, I had no issue with. She was definitely trying.
Yes.
So yeah, I had feelings for her in this episode, and that, definitely I got a Kleenex out for that. And then there was the 1, 2, 3, 4 punch.
Yes.
That was
and that's
delivered.
That's how bad Evie actually is, because not only did she do it to Beth, she did it to Cosima, and apparently she's doing it to Duco
Right.
as well.
Right.
And has him convinced that, if he quits or tries to run, she's going to kill his family.
Right. Which she probably will.
Right.
I mean, I can't imagine she wouldn't just...
Get rid of any evidence.
Right. Pull the plug on whatever she needs to.
Yes.
She doesn't seem to have any morality.
None.
When it comes to that. So at the end of the episode, not only does she order Duco to kill Kendall and set fire to the van, which includes any evidence that she currently holds, she says, and here's the quote that she says to Cosima, who's already gutted on the ground in tears over Kendall. She says, Delphine Cormier was shot dead at the Dyad Parkade, where she breaks down even more, like just sobbing. Tell Susan the original's dead. Tell Sarah it's over, or Beth died for nothing. And it's just like, boom, 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 boom.
Yeah.
I mean, how many punches does she land there? An expert knife twister.
Mm-hmm. Indeed.
Wow.
And that's where you really get to see Tatiana at her best.
Right.
Being Cosima, who is so chill 99% of the time. And to see that raw emotion come out of her was just heartbreaking.
It was incredible. She was already to the point of just utter pain, knowing that Kendall was dying in back of her, because you saw that connection that they had.
Yes.
From her having to take blood from her. You saw those little bantery interchanges they had several times. And so she felt deeply that she was, ending her life right there. And that Kendall said her last words to her and, told her all those things right there at the end of her life, and, turn around chicken and, all that stuff. And I was just like, oh my God. So she turns around, she drops to her knees. She's already just in the pit of despair. And then Evie gives her that little
kick in the face.
Dispassionate, just no feelings whatsoever. And now we learn, I'm guessing that it's Evie. It's either Evie or Duco that shot Delphine, right?
Right. Oh. And that's been bannered about as well. Could it be Duco? Well, the person who shot Delphine was somebody she seemed to know fairly well.
Right. And Evie would fall into that category.
I think Evie would probably fall into that category more than Duco.
Yeah.
Because I think Duco probably was the one that Rachel probably used to send after Leaky.
Yeah, most likely. He probably hung around.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm guessing, he was kind of like their Talon.
Local cleaner.
Right.
Not quite as good as Ferdinand.
No.
Local cleaner.
I wouldn't even say not quite. I would say like not even close to as good as Ferdinand.
No.
He is like the Pink Panther Equivalent. Inspector Clouseau.
Clouseau, yes.
Equivalent to the James Bond Ferdinand.
Ferdinand.
Yeah, I was just blown away by this episode completely. And now she has the tools to take over for Susan. Mm-hmm. Her whole goal in all of this was to just overthrow Susan.
Yep.
And it looks like she just can, because I'm guessing Susan is just going to be utterly destroyed by all this.
I kind of think at first she will, but I have a feeling we may see Susan again in the future. Maybe not the end of this season, but I think in season 5, Susan will make a return.
Well, I think she'll be here now, too. I just don't think she'll be able to head up anything right away, because I think she feels like she's just lost everything. You know, she was on such a high meeting Kendall and
getting all of Casima's research.
Right. And just knowing she had everything right there.
To be able to cure the Litas and start over if she wanted to.
It kind of depends on what happens in the next episode, or the next 2 episodes, I guess.
Right.
I'll talk about a little bit. You and I will talk about a little bit what I've heard about the next episode. So
right.
Yeah. So yeah, I don't know what's going to happen to her this season. I'm guessing we'll see her in a bigger role again. I mean, in the same magnitude of a role again. Well, because we know the bad guys never win.
Right.
And in the whole scope of things, Susan is not a big bad. She might be a little bad. And I don't mean a little tiny bit bad. I mean, like a minor bad guy. But in the overall scheme of things, she wasn't trying to be a bad guy. Evie's trying to be a bad guy.
Oh, yeah, and succeeding very well.
Right. I think Susan doesn't have evil intentions, whereas she may have done things that didn't work out right. She is really just in it for the science. So...
Yeah, and that's really confusing, because everything we've seen up till this episode made her the big bad.
Right? I know.
Wait, now, whoa, huh?
It really did.
Back up.
Right. It really did. But I think a lot of that was just that Evie was on her side of the fence, and there was a lot of stuff going on under the table around her.
Right. That we weren't made aware of until this episode.
Right. Exactly right. And that she was, as we saw, she was the one orchestrating Beth going to kill Susan. Mm-hmm. You know, she was telling Beth
that Susan was the one behind all of it.
Right, right. So she was manipulating people. She was a puppet master, and I think that was what we were seeing. And, you know, Susan is not exactly the lovey, huggy, squeezy type.
No.
So there's that too.
Yes,
okay, so are we okay with that storyline? I mean, I'm not okay with it.
Yeah.
But
I think, well, I do want to say not only was the acting outstanding, but the way they pieced those last few minutes of the episode together, going from Kendall and Cosima to Beth, and seeing it all play out back to back like that was
amazing.
John and Graham were just amazing in making sure that was put together as well as it was.
Yeah, and that was huge props to Grant Harvey, the director, to do it like that. I love when they do quick cuts like that, especially when they mesh so well together. In order for them to put it in a way that made sense to us, that those two storylines merged
like that. Yes.
Yeah, it was perfect. It was really great. And then when it cut to Cosima calling Sarah and Sarah having to reveal that Kendall was dead.
Yeah.
Without saying a word.
Bird.
It was just a faucet in my house. It was just, oh man, just heart-wrenching. I cannot even.
And then to have the very final shot being Beth walking down to the train station.
Yep, because we know that's where it ended for her and started for us.
Mm-hmm.
And remind me to bring that up when we talk about what's going to happen in the next episode.
Okay.
All right. So the other part of this episode was crystal unclear. Now, Crystal, what is her deal? How on earth does she have the same DNA as these other clones? Right?
Yeah, she's close, but just not close enough.
I don't understand. Okay, so at least she goes to the right precinct. This is good news.
Yes. And Art was masterful
Yeah.
in keeping Duco away from her.
Perfect, yes. Because he knows it's bad news if Duco sees her.
So, yes.
And he spirits her away to an interrogation room. And he's humoring her, which is good. And doing it in a way so she doesn't feel threatened. Because I think he could have walked a very fine line here where she could have put him in a category of being part of the conspiracy.
Yes.
Absolutely. That ran through my mind big time. Where, if he had mentioned, do you know this person? Do you know this person? Do you know? That would have been it. She would have put him in that category right away. But for some...
Because we see that she does that even with Felix.
Right. And, she's done that almost with everything that she's run into.
Mm-hmm.
And I love how she has turned things around in order to get herself out of trouble. She stole all those beauty supplies. But she says, and they tried to buy me off with the beauty supplies. Can you believe it? And I'm thinking, you know what? That's pretty smart. Because it's not like they would say that they gave her the beauty supplies if they were trying to buy her off. So yeah, if you were stealing stuff, you would say they tried to buy me off. Okay, that's kind of smart. But, seriously. You're a big dummy, Crystal. So I don't know how, but he manages to get her back to his place.
Yeah.
Now, I wasn't sure how that happened because that would be a red flag to me if a policeman wanted to take me back to his place. And I would think Crystal might balk at that.
Right, because of what happened with Rudy.
Right, and the conspiracy thing and all that, But he may have just said, I need you to come to this place where we can, a neutral ground where you can meet with this guy who's also on the same case. I mean, he may have said something like that. Who knows?
Right.
She's kind of dumb. He could have come up with some weird story that she would have bought. He is smart.
Right.
So I can write it off like that. I can do a hand wave. But I did tilt my head for a minute and think, how did he get her back? But, oh my God. Felix.
Holmes, at your service.
Oh my God. I have to say, when he shows up with a hat on, and he's an inspector, and he says he's from Scotland Yard, and she says, I thought you said Scotland.
He's from London. You said Scotland. Okay. That's as far as this is going to go.
Right, that's as far as that's going to go. He knows already. No use explaining.
No, don't try.
She's not going to
drop it now.
Right. And I thought, if he's going to come over, she's going to remember him.
Yes.
But thank goodness he's a quick thinker, and he explains it as, I was already on this case.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had to go question you and, all that kind of stuff. So they have a conversation. And again, it dovetails into the other conversation.
Mm-hmm.
And by the time we get to the heart of everything, while they're trying to appease her, right near the end of the episode, she reveals that she saw Delphine get shot. And that quick cuts into all the other scenes where
we roll into all the deaths.
Yeah. And again, that light-hearted thread from this episode is also woven in to the main story, which again, it just floors me how they can do that. And Crystal is just like, through this whole episode, you can write her off, and then all of a sudden she's got this huge piece of information. Right? Crazy.
And how are they going to get the information from her? And it's because they sure can't afford to bring her into the clone club.
Do you think? I think they're going to, though.
I don't think they will. I think Art will say not only no, but no. And Felix will have to go back again and try to pull the information out of her as to who she saw shooting Delphine.
Oh,
yeah,
man.
I really think Crystal will not be brought into the clone club.
I'm trying to think of ways they could do it.
I know. It's not going to be easy.
Right. See, and I think there's a lot of comedic value to bringing her into the clone club.
Oh, my God, yes.
Right?
Can you see her and Allison? Oh, my God.
Oh, no. I cannot. But can you see some of the others pretending to be Crystal?
Oh, yeah.
Having to pretend to be Crystal? That would be
hilarious.
Right? Right?
Oh. Yeah. Oh, God. Imagine Helena or MK trying to be Crystal.
I can see Helena doing it.
Yeah.
I can. Helena trying to do nails. Sure. And, filing them completely down to the quick.
Or to very sharp deadly
points.
tips.
Sure. Oh, that would be awesome. Yeah. So great. So her storyline was funny until the very end, and they tied it all back in to Delphine and the quick cuts at the end. And that scene, I liken it to where Gotham has been doing this thing all season, where the end of their episode, I don't know, maybe 2/3 of the time has been quick cuts that tie everything together.
Yes.
And they did that masterfully at the end of this episode, where all of the storylines came together and tied up, and they all hit one point where we could see that all these people all tied together, including Beth in the past. And it was just Grant Harvey, kudos to you. Big time. Anything else you have?
Not on Crystal, no. Of course, Fee gets a foot too close and gets maced.
Right. Oh, there's that. Yes. Crystal also gets maced, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that she maces him, and then she steps forward to help him and walks into the cloud a little bit. Yeah. And she goes, oh. She's waving her hand in front of her face.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was not good.
No.
And then she says that, it was just a reflex. I'm sorry. No, it wasn't a reflex. You meant to mace him. Yeah, she is a trip and a half.
And to see the ability of Tatiana to go from dead serious to almost slapstick comedy is...
Right?
Yes. She is unbelievable.
Crazy. She's so good. Why has she not won an Emmy?
Yes.
Okay, if she doesn't get nominated this year, I might hurt someone. And then if she doesn't win, it'll be a crime.
Yes.
Because there hasn't been an actress like her in so many years.
Yeah.
She is one of the most versatile performers I've ever seen. And honestly, she hasn't made many missteps at all.
No.
The only one I can think of is Tony, and I don't think that's her fault.
No.
I wouldn't mind seeing Tony again just to see if she could maybe, if she and the creators could maybe do a little better with Tony.
Yeah.
But I think she probably
That
could.
misstep, yes.
Yeah. It wasn't huge. It really wasn't a huge misstep.
No,
I mean, it just didn't ring 100% for me is all. So I don't know why. But yeah.
It was unexpected, that's for sure.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I think she did really great with what she had. Mm-hmm. I'll put it that way. She just wasn't given everything, all the tools that she could have been given. So, all right. We do have Justina's feedback, and I'd like to play that now if you would like to hear it.
Oh, yes, please.
All right. Let me play it.
Hi, Cologne Club. That was a good episode, but it was a sad episode. I give that episode 7 out of 10 cute detective outfits.
7?
Felix was really styling in this episode. This episode had such a hopeless feeling with all the data being gone and Kendall being killed. But I do have some hope that those bots that they took out of Leaky's face and Sarah's face might provide some data to help the clones on their mission. I'm just wondering if there's going to be any consequences to removing Sarah's, because I know I've been theorizing that it was doing something bad to her, but if it's possible that it was actually helping her, and that's why she hasn't shown any sign of illness yet, will there be bad consequences to removing it? I do think Dr. Duncan will get to be more on the side of the leaders. I mean, of course she'll want to continue to help Ira, but I think that now that she's met more of her girls face to face, she will be invested in helping them as well. But I had to give this episode a slightly lower grade because no Donnie and Allison, and still no updates on Helena, though Crystal did provide us with some very funny moments. Even though we didn't see Helena, I've been thinking about Helena and her babies, wondering if they will be the key to a cure. Because Helena and Sarah are mirror twins, and they're both Litas, but Helena was in the Prolethean compound when she became pregnant through the artificial insemination, so I'm wondering if her twins are not mirror twins, but one Lita twin and one Castor twin, meaning that we won't have lost the genome after all with the death of Kendall, that Helena's babies will have the genetic information that we need. Catch you next week, Clone Club.
Except it was the head guy.
Yeah.
That impregnated her. Although we were kind of thinking it was Mark, but I don't think it was Mark, right?
No.
Yeah, I think it was Mr. Man
Yeah.
that did it. Gross. So it was because no Allison, Donnie, or Helena that she gave it a low grade. I get that. I do.
Yeah.
And I can't do a Helena impression, but I can do a Crystal impression. And I hate to say it, but it's because I lived in California for so long. Yeah. During the Valley Girl craze. So
the 70s.
Yeah, exactly. So like they had me in this room and they tried to give me all these supplies to buy me off, so so that's kind of her, she has a Canadian accent too, which I cannot do, so.
Right.
Yeah, that's she says like a lot. That's really all you have to do her is say like a lot. Yeah, such a great performance. I get the 7, but man, the performances, I think.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Crazy time.
And crazy good.
Yeah. But if you want to give Justina feedback like Justina does, how can they do that?
Well, our deadline is Sunday at 6 p.m. Eastern, and you can do it one of several different ways. On Facebook, go to facebook.com/Felix's Helixes, and you can message us or post your feedback there. If you feel so inclined to typey out an email, you can do that and send it to felixshelixes@gmail.com. Or you can always get on the Twitter machine and tweet at us there at Felix's Helixes or at Oliveria or at Salyer Steve.
That is correct. And of course, it's Felix's Helixes, Felixs Helixes, because apostrophe.
Yeah.
And that's 6 p.m. Eastern on Sunday, which is real time.
Yeah. Yes, I hear that all the time from you East Coasters.
I know. I'm sorry. I used to live in Texas, and it still didn't feel real to me, that everything coming on at 7 p.m. It was very weird, I thought. But I get it. I do. I get it. So I have to tell you about next week. And I also would like to talk a little bit about stuff I heard also from the showrunners.
Alrighty.
So here's the preview that we got from, I got from directly from the press site. So the Anti-Socialism of Sex, Season 4, Episode 7, May 26th at 10 p.m. Eastern. Sarah regresses to old habits while struggling to cope with the consequences of her decisions. Reconnecting with Beth on a dark night of the soul. Back at the lab, Cassima, haunted by vicious memories and news of Delphine, attempts a dangerous Hail Mary to find a cure. At the Hendrixes, Allison is more determined than ever to create normalcy for her kids. As she forges ahead with the birthday party, Donnie is caught in the Neolution crosshairs. So, a lot of stuff happening. We do definitely get Allison and Donnie back next week.
Yes.
Whether we get Helena back or not, who knows? It doesn't mention her, but you know, with Allison
didn't see
and Donnie
her in
back,
the preview either. So
right, exactly. With Donnie back, we might see her. I don't know. Now, here's what I heard from the showrunners: is that next week is going to be very character driven.
Yeah.
And a little less forward moving with the plot. Next week.
Makes sense because you've got to everybody's got to have some time to deal with what happened.
Right. A little bit of decompression happening. So, I just want to prepare at least the people that listen to us for a tiny bit of a slowdown next week.
Right.
Now, it looks like there is going to be some progression, a little bit of progression, at least with Allison and Donnie, with him being caught in the Neolution crosshairs. I don't know what's happening there. But
yeah, is that the police, i.e. Duco?
Yeah. Or, geez, who knows?
Right.
Or is it something coming back to bite them in the butt about Leaky?
Yeah.
That could happen too. Duco/Leaky. I mean, it could be both. Duco finding out about Leaky.
Yeah.
And them having to bury Leaky in their garage. I mean, Duco in their garage.
Yeah. Please.
I know, that would be awesome. And then Angie after that.
Yeah.
I'm smiling really big right now. You can't see it, but I am. So it says reconnecting with Beth on a dark night of the soul. And this is where I wanted to talk about that last scene where we see Beth walking to the edge of the platform. And Sarah did witness that suicide. And I think finding out about all this and watching that video is going to take her back to that night now that she knows what drove that. And it's taken us back to that moment as well. Mm-hmm. So I have a feeling that they're going to recall us a little bit, like they're going to rewind Sarah back to that moment and maybe give us a little of an insight into what went through her head when that happened, and then how she feels about it now.
Right.
I'm not sure, but it seems to kind of be what they're talking about, that she is gonna compare and contrast, like looking back and wondering if she could have done something other than just stand there and watch it happen. So
That, and I think it will probably also have to do, we know Sarah is prone to overdoing the partying and going deep into it, which I think we will see. Mm-hmm. And her way of, not decompressing, escaping.
right.
And I think that's where we'll see Beth come back in and basically slap Sarah around, saying, I sacrificed my life for the clones.
Right. For all of you.
For all of you.
Right.
You need to do better.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's what's going to happen too. And I really think it's going to hit her that she was there.
Yeah.
When all this happened.
And she may have been able to stop it.
Right.
If she would have just reacted.
Right. And it makes me very sad that she's going to have to deal with that now.
Right.
Along with all this other stuff, because she's going to, not only is she going to feel guilty about destroying those samples, but with setting up the whole deal in the first place.
Right.
So yeah, she's going to have a hard time. Oh man. I can't wait to watch the episode, but there's part of me that's like,
Yeah, it's going to be very painful, I'm afraid.
It's going to be difficult to watch, I think.
Yes.
And I wasn't prepared for how difficult this episode was to watch.
No.
So I'm going to prepare myself for this one, I think.
Yes, I think we know this one is coming.
Yeah, I think so too. And yeah, with that, I guess we should go. Yeah.
Yeah, I think we've covered this episode pretty well.
Yeah, I think we have. Such a great episode and so great to talk about it. I was dying to talk to you about it.
I know.
And dying to chat with all you guys, because I feel like I'm kind of just letting my words come out and talk to everybody who listens to us. It's so nice to have people to talk to this about. I don't know about you guys, but I just love.
Oh, yeah, that's the best thing about this show is being able to talk about it because it's so good.
Right. So many theories, so many things to predict and discuss and all that. Yeah. So yeah, we'll be back next week. Same time, same channel, all that stuff. And we'll talk to you guys later.
Next time, Clone Club.